Morning, Cormac. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Peter?
Yes, all good, thanks. Welcome to the Business Spotlight. Thanks very much for taking the time to chat with me today. So, Cormac, could you tell me, as a starter, could you tell me a little about yourself, your background, and your business, please?
Yeah, about myself, I'm a chartered civil engineer, and I've been working in that sort of career path for a good bit of my working career up until last July. And I'm also co-founder and managing director of YardBox, and I started this company 4.5 years ago. And the company was set up during COVID, and it was sort of born out of frustration. So, like many other people, I found myself working from home and had young kids in the house and had no space. So, I needed an extra space in the garden to work from, or dedicated office space. I went to my dad and my brother with the idea. They're both in the construction industry, and they goes, "Here, we could turn this into a business." So, that's what we ended up doing. So, 3 or 4 projects later, then I ended up getting my project that was put in the back burner for a while. So, up until July, I was sort of doing it part time or helping in the evenings and working every sort of hour under the sun. But in July time in the summer, it got too busy, so I had to step away from full time employment and go full time into the business, which was good. It was always a goal of mine to start my own business, so it was actually very liberating whenever I was able to afford myself or to pay myself in the business.
And what was the spark that led you? Well, I guess two things, two questions. What was the spark that led you to launch the business back 4.5 years ago? And then what was it that the spark to make you leave full-time employment and focus full-time on the business?
I think the business idea came out of, as I said, frustration of working from home. We were extending the house at the time with a newborn baby in the house. Whilst we were extending the house with an extra bedroom and extra living space, but we didn't have a dedicated working place. So I was working from a bedroom, like a lot of people during the pandemic. So whenever I thought, right, I need an extra space, and I sort of drew up on a wee model of what I thought that would look like, and went to my brother and asked him, "Could you build this?" He goes, "Yeah, of course I could build it." I think one night I was talking to my dad, and he goes, "Cormac, there's loads of people going to be looking for these." So I just thought, right, we should maybe think about going into business or setting up a little business doing that. And at the time, to me, it just felt mental that a 6th month baby in the house, it was in full-time employment. I was building an extension in the house. But it was sort of my dad gave me that spark just to go, right, let's go at it. So in the next couple of weeks, there was racking my head of names and what we call the business. And then one night I just woke up in the middle of the night and had YardBox in my head and thought, that's a good name. It's very catchy and it's universal. So from the inception of the business, I always wanted to grow this into something bigger. So whenever we started the YardBox company, I registered it as well one day before I turned 30 because I always wanted to start my own business. So I just thought it was a poignant time. So just in my last day of my 20s, I registered the business, got it over the line, and I started trading maybe a couple of months after that. So that was the spark to start the business. And then once we get the ball rolling, it's creating something for yourself and like just being creative and building a business up. It was exciting. So instead of like I was used to working on multi-million pound marine projects around the UK, which were all exciting, floating out in the middle of the sea in a barge, putting piles in and doing risky work, which was exciting. But then I found myself in a position where I was working in bid management in the office, and I'd lost that excitement of the construction process. And this was giving me a wee bit of that back. But just even learning how business is set up, how you run it, getting your branding right, your marketing, everything. So everything was a learning curve. I'd never done any of that before. So that was the spark setting the business up, and it was more just about ambition to grow it. And like we've got it to a point now where it can afford me as an overhead full time, which was the first stage. I always wanted to set a business up where I could work in a full time. Essentially,
Mhm.
I'm not on the tools. So if I'm not on the tools, I have to make my time worthwhile. And that point in July came where we were that busy that I needed to step out of full-time employment into the office to get to push things on and keep things running. So it was sort of So my dad said, you do one thing until the other thing takes over it. And it got to that point where I was working around the clock to try and keep two things going. So I had it. It was a natural point in the progression of the business and my career just to move into it full time.
And how has the market, so during COVID, there was an explosion in garden offices, that outside space. How now we're 4.5 years down the line, how has the market changed, or like, indeed your initial business, how's it changed in that time?
Yeah, initially we thought, right, we're going to build home offices for everybody, and that's what the business sort of plan was around. But yeah, as the people started moving back into the office or into the office and into the workplace, yes, that end of it slowed down. But what we were doing was every project we were doing, we're sort of learning a new skill set. So like no project is the same, and we've had to evolve the business. Like just sort of have to pivot the business pretty quickly, and because we're small and we're nimble and we're a small team, we can do that. So like it evolved from a garden office, and then the next project was like a home gym. So there's the home gym market as well. But then once the gym started opening again, there was a bit of the lag in that. But what we've evolved now into is more of like an alternative housing solution business as well. So one client came to us, he was a Brazilian guy living in Dublin, and his mother visited regularly, but he was living in a townhouse. So he never had any space for us. So we wanted a shower room and a little kitchenette put out in his garden room. So from that, the business has now turned into we build like granny annexes and alternative living solutions for people in their garden. Because if you're going to invest the money into the garden and put an extra shower on it, future proof it for the future whenever your kids get older, or even the extra living space for guests. So it's evolved into that. And the other sort of side of the business is sort of evolving now, and it's evolving really quickly, is the indoor golfing. So we've done multiple projects for golf pros or just golf fanatics that are looking for golf simulators. So we've had to pivot into that market pretty quickly, and now we're starting to get recognized on the island as probably one of the main providers of that, or the best providers of the golf simulator stuff. So I think that's where the growth is going to will. Whenever I initially started off the business, I didn't even know that a golf simulator existed until one client came to us and asked us for one. And now the business this year, I think most of our business is going to be in that realm, which is crazy. So I think the key to it is, as times change and the sort of the economy changes and the everything else changes, you have to be able to pivot. But we're pretty versatile, and we've got a product that can be used for multiple different solutions. So it's more about the thing that needs to change. We're still building the same similar product, but what needs to change is your messaging and your marketing. That's the thing that is the thing that's always fluid, or you have to get strong on, because the start is like we need sponsored ads out on Facebook, Google, and Instagram and that. And it's like, who do we target? Because we can provide a solution for any type of audience. So it was like trying to find, how do you funnel your sales channels. That's the biggest learning curve that I sort of had so far. I'm trying to be like, instead of being a jack of all trades, try and be a master of one or a master of two. So
And
that's
what have you learned about yourself along the way, Cormac?
uh, what I learned about myself is you can't do everything by yourself. I've learned that I'm very good at standing back and looking into the future and the big picture thinking. But what I've learned about myself over the last 6 months of moving into business full time is like the day-to-day stuff. Yes, I can run it, but I need to just sort of hand that over to my father and my brother. Because if I get into the nitty-gritty of it, I just get obsessed with it. I'd be a bit of a perfectionist, but what I learn about myself is I need to take a step back sometimes and just go, right, what's the 2 year plan, 3 year plan, 4 year plan, 5 year plan, and then sort of work towards that whilst maintaining everything else running ahead. So I think I've learned that I'm better at looking forward rather than just sort of like sometimes to get caught up too much in the detail, which actually causes me more stress than what it's worth because it's under control.
Is that your engineer background coming back to haunt you a little bit?
It is, yeah. I think it is, yeah. But like whenever I'd be working on projects and engineering, I learned a lot about it. We'd be looking at a 2 year project on site. So we have to plan everything from like 6 months in advance of the project starting. So we'll put together a program and we'll know everything that's happening for the next 2 years. So whenever I'm trying to take that and bring it to my dad and my brother and say, right, this is our plan for the next 6 months or the next year. This is where we need to be for the different jobs. They look at me as if we've got two heads. But that's just how engineers like to see a problem and come up with a solution and sort of know all the steps of the way. So that's sort of been a bit of internal battles of, yes, you can't know what every step of the solution is because I'm used to looking at a project and knowing what all the different steps are. Yes, you come up with problems, but you overcome them, but you know what the design is, you know what your outcome is, you know what you're going to build. Where this is completely different. You're pivoting all the time. So we have a vision in our head of what this wants to be, but then something else comes up and it takes over that. And then you're like, right, we're going in a different direction here, similar direction, but it's a different direction. So is that there that's trying to break out of the mold of square boxes and engineering and knowing all the answers to not knowing the answers. I think that's what I've learned more than anything.
And what about who's been your biggest influence along the way?
To be honest, I think my dad's been my biggest influence. I know that might sound a bit cheesy, but like he ran a construction company for most of his life. He retired, and then whenever it came to this business, he was sort of like semi-retired, went in with the idea, and he goes, "Yeah, 100%, we can do that." And he had sort of like the big picture thinking right away. He's like, "We can do this on a massive scale." I'm like, "Dad, come on, we haven't done one yet." But he says, "Right, well, we need a plan that we're doing it on a big scale. So we need to put everything in place. If it looks like we're going to be doing it on a big scale, we need to have like we invested a lot of money in branding and stuff at the very start when we weren't turning over any money and said, right, we'll put everything in place. So put all the stepping stones or all the cornerstones in place that whenever this is a big business, we're ready for it." So like he's very good at that. And the other thing that he's really taught me over the last 4 years of working with him is every business transaction is two sides to the coin. So like some people are like, right, we're selling a product, and then you get this is the customer's always right or whatever else. But what he does, every client that we go out to see, he builds a personal relationship with them. And that's where like we are a family business, but we go the extra mile to help people over or to basically have a vision and to bring the vision to life. But like he would meet up with people and he connect with them on a personal level. So there's that element of trust there. And because you build the trust on both sides, it means that we've never had a client that's turned around and missed the payment, or never had a client that sort of held back in money, or never had any of the issues that you normally get in the construction industry, because we feel that when you choose a client as well as the client chooses a company. And that's where my dad is very, very good at that sort of face to face. And like there's a couple of sayings that he would have sort of instilled in us as we're growing up. And one of them's like, nothing's a problem, everything's a solution. So like anytime there's a problem on site, as he goes, there's no problem there, what's the solution to it? And then the other thing, whenever it came to me starting my career in management and engineering, they always said about you've got two watering cans. You can either you've got one watering can and you've got a pot of plants or a pot of flowers and a pot of weeds. You can choose to water one of them. And this is how you need to deal with people. So like if you're taking that watering can and you're going in and you're focusing on the negativity and you're focusing on flaws in the person or that they're annoying you or anything else, like you can either focus on that and that'll water the weeds and it'll grow that in them, or else you can focus on the positive stuff. Even though the person might be a pain in the ass, you have to focus on what's the good points in them and you grow that. And he told the story about whenever he's working on a construction site, they're doing a big development down in outside Dublin, and there's a crane driver landed in on the job, and my dad was managing the project or whatever, like it was his development, and everybody said it's like this Willie, this crane driver's a complete nightmare. He's in for work late, he doesn't do anything you tell him, like he's sitting in the lunch hall too long, and like he causes issues every site he goes to. So my dad just said to himself, he goes, "Oh, all right, that's okay, whatever." And he just sort of brushed it off. So he seen the crane driver and I can't remember the name of him, but just say his name was Thomas. He went down him and said to him right away, he goes, "Thomas, I hear you're the best crane driver in Dublin. I hear you're so reliable, and I hear like you can use the crane as if it's an extension of your arm, and you're like the best crane driver about. We're really lucky to have you here. And my older brother at the time he was working with my dad was standing there, and he knew all the tricks of my dad. My dad sort of like tricks and all the spiel, and he was just like, "This guy's never going to listen to this. He knows he's completely BSing him." But he said for the next 6 months, that driver on the site, he was in half an hour before everybody. He had the crane warmed up. He had the kettles boiled for everybody coming in. He had the site huts all heated up, and he was like the best. He literally was the best crane driver that my dad ever worked with. So it just shows you like it's how you deal with people. So from
Yeah,
that,
great.
any day in business, you're dealing with people day in, day out. And sometimes I'm pulling my hair out and going, I just don't like this. But then you just sort of have to take a step back and go, right, people are people. And that's what I've learned from him. But when you're building a business up, it is about the people that are around you and the people that you're dealing with all the time. So that's probably the best advice and the best sort of what I've took into even my engineering career and then into my business. And
Yeah,
as you
great stories there. And yeah, absolutely. You people buy from people, and yeah, and the best leaders and managers and business owners are great at dealing with people and understand others. So yeah, great share. So what about what gets you out of bed in the morning, Cormac, and drives your passion for the business?
I think it's just the vision that we have for the next 5 years and where we want to go to. And we want to like every day, like I'm very like analytical too. So like every year we're year on year we're growing, and I'm just seeing the growth in it, and I'm seeing how we're bringing more people in and different bits. But what drives me is like where we want to go to. Like I want to bring the YardBox brand into like we want to move into different countries. We want to do different things, and a lot of it will do or come along with the like, strategic partnerships and stuff we develop. But I just once the inception of the business, has seen it as a massive business and a massive brand, and what drives me is every day progressing towards that. And like even though it's small steps sometimes, and sometimes it's frustrating, but as long as you're moving forward, you're not moving back. So I think it's just that's what gets me out of bed every day. And then some of the projects and stuff we're working on and the people that we're dealing with, like like I can honestly say we get the best clients, and it's like helping them bring their vision to life is brilliant. You know, whether it's a client that's needing like a little house for her mum to live in so she can be beside her instead of being in a nursing home, or is it somebody who's like a golf enthusiast who wants to practice in their game? And like we set up a showroom which is fully fledged as a simulator, and I would go into it 2 or 3 times a week, and it's the best fun ever. They would bring the kids in, bring them and my older brothers and that there. So it's just creating spaces for people to enjoy more than and for them that they need. So I think that's it. It's bringing our product to the market and seeing how far we can go with it. But I think what's driving me is the bigger vision of where we want to go in the next 3 to 5 years.
And if you were in the unlikely event that you were on a desert island and could read a book or listen to a podcast, what would you choose to read or listen to?
I don't know, it changes all the time, like, but I'd say at the minute my favorite podcast would be a Diary of the CEO with Stephen Bartlett. I think he brings on so many different people. So I think you're lucky with him because it's not just the business podcast. You're getting everything from health, well-being, just politics, business. You know, it is, and he's got a good variety of people. So I
Hmm.
think it's a pretty intellectual listen, and it does get you thinking sometimes, and it challenges your thinking. And I think what's really important, especially in today's world, is to see things from different viewpoints. And I think Stephen does that. He brings in different people from different thought processes, especially around the American election. He'd have guys that would be leaning towards the Republican side, and he'd have
Hmm.
Democrats in, and he gets a viewpoint from everywhere. Because I think in today's society, people get caught up in sides rather than thinking of a we're most well, it's not even. I don't think people do. I think that's just the way the media portrays it, to try and divide everybody. But it's nice where you've got a podcast where you're getting guests from all sorts of areas coming in, and you see a viewpoint and you see other people's point of view, and you challenge your own thinking at times. So I
Hmm.
think that's what I'd be listening to. Like, and he started to make them longer, which is good because I think at the start they're only an hour, and you only start getting into the podcast within an hour.
And what about what's the biggest challenge that you're currently facing in your business?
I think it's scaling up. The biggest challenge is trying to get people to fall into the new positions. So the first challenge was to get myself in the business full time, and now that I'm in the business full time, I'm finding myself doing too many different roles. So now I think the biggest challenge is to put the right people in the right places. So like over the next few months, my challenge is to train somebody up to do most of the sort of day-to-day works that I do, to bring in people with the marketing end of things that can sort of help out with that more. And then it's sort of trusting in people.
Hmm.
So like I think most people say that if you are a business owner, the biggest thing you need to be good at is hiring. And I can see that now.
And if you could invite any three people, alive or dead, to a dinner party, who would you invite?
Uh, well, I think I would invite three people from different sort of backgrounds. So from a sporting background, I think I'd invite Muhammad Ali, because I'm a massive boxing fan, plus what he did for the sport. And I think he'd be a real good person to talk to because he just transcended the sport. And the other one would be Richard Branson from a business point of view, because I have a lot of respect for him and what he's done and how his vision around quality. And I take a lot of inspiration from that. He always wanted to be the best at something. So he's seen a
Hmm.
product or he's seen something on the market, like what was the Virgin Airlines even, and he said, people should be getting treated better on an airplane. You know, the flight experience should be better. So he's like, right, I'll set up my own airline. So for someone to be an entrepreneur and have so many different businesses running at the same time, I think he's a complete visionary. And the way he treats his staff as well, like all of his staff love working for him. So like if we would have him, I think he'd be a very good person to get a bit of advice off. And then the other person I would say would be Billy Connolly, because he's a great storyteller. And um plus like he would just add so much value to the dinner party. And I'd love to talk to him. He's one of the best comedians of all time.
Yeah, that'll be a good night, to be fair, Cormac. Yeah, that'll be a good night. I'd try and gate crash that one myself. What
Honestly,
about if you could go back in time and give some advice to your 18-year-old self, what would that be?
I think it would be just to stop panicking and just enjoy the moment, because I think I would be a very critical thinker and I would always want to be pushing myself as far as I can. But if we went back to be 18 year again, I would just say everything's going to work out. Just chill out, travel more, don't think too much about the future. Sort of like don't be as stressed about it, and like enjoy being young, because what is it, like 12 or 15 years down the line, I have 4 kids and I'm married and I'm running a business and doing everything else. There's a lot of stressors on your plate. Whereas as an 18-year-old, you don't have any of that, but you think the whole world's against you sometimes. So I think it would be just relax and enjoy the moment and take your time. Things take time. You can't push stuff too fast.
Hmm.
And I was sort of thinking about this too. It was like, would it change anything that I've done, or would it like? I remember being in the middle of it while like, I graduated from Queens and I was in Aberdeen for my first project working, and I was away from home, away from family, couldn't play sport. I had a young kid at the time. I was home at the weekends and that, but it was like I felt very isolated and I wasn't getting paid a lot of money. At the time, I was like, why did I choose this career path? And I think a lot of people find themselves in that sort of position. And whenever I got to like 26, 27, it still sort of felt, but I chose the wrong career path here. Like I have so much more to give, and so like I'm being held back. But what I did realize now, whenever I'm looking at it from 10 years further on from being like mid 20s, that everything that you're doing between them years, as hard as they may be, you're learning your trade, you're learning skills, you're
Hmm.
you're investing in yourself. So like I was investing in myself, and even when I was working at a job for the last 5 years, sometimes I found it boring. But I was seeing the front end of a multi-million-pound business, that how you run it, what happens, like stuff that you don't really want to deal with, like like legal, compliance, finance, everything. So like the time it feels I'm not moving anywhere, but this is what I would say to myself is going back. It's like you're learning something, even though it doesn't feel like you're moving forward. You're building your skill sets for the future. So I
Hmm.
think it would just be to tell me 18-year-old self, just chill out, enjoy the moment, and don't stress about not achieving your goals as quickly as you think they're going to be achieved, and sort of let things happen because things take time.
And instead of looking back, let's look forward. So let's fast forward to, say, 5 years' time. So it's January 2030. What does YardBox look like then?
Yeah, I think by 2030, hopefully the plan is that we're going to be in different countries that do want to move into North America at some point. I have a connection there with my wife's Canadian, so I think, and I've got an auntie over in outside Toronto who's a property developer, so there's a real easy sort of route to market there. But I want to, like, I would like the YardBox brand on this island anyway. Like, we would be the go-to company for alternative living solutions and annexes and golf simulators. Like, I really want to push the golf market because it's something that's really exciting and it's really interesting. So I'd like to be, in 5 years' time, people will know who we are, especially in Ireland, and we'll have moved into North America, whether it's the States or Canada, and obviously across the water into the rest of the UK as well. So it's sort of grown it from where we're at now into different countries and sort of seeing where it can go. But I do think it's the alternative housing solutions and the granny annexes and stuff like the special stuff like the golf sims. I do want to push it into being market leaders in them two aspects. And in 5 years' time, I think we could get there, because in the last 5 years, we've went from the start, or from 4.5 years, we went from nothing to being like one of the most recognized companies for quality anyway, not quantity. We're maybe not pushing out to most of them, but we're getting the right clients coming to us because they know that they're getting a higher end product. So it's developing that into the next step. So like the first phase of the business is there or thereabouts, so now it's just scaling up.
And if somebody likes what they've heard, Cormac, and would like to reach out and get in touch with you or the business, what's the best way for them to go about that?
The best thing to do is just to go onto our website and have a look around. It's yardbox.co.uk. And just have a nosy on the website, see what we're about. And then on the website, there's a contact form or a contact number. You'll find my number on the website anyway, and just pick up the phone and give us a call. But what we do is one of the biggest things is collaboration. Like, so like, whether it's like we're collaborating at the minute with a hotel chain or no hotel on building 10 cabins for them. So we're working with them. It's a longer term project. It's going to take a couple of or a year or so before that happens. But even on something that scale with a bigger business too, on a personal scale, we want to collaborate with our clients to help them bring their vision to life. We're not about trying to make our product fit you. We're about making or fitting our product to your needs. Like, so that's something that it's a wee bit extra than what you would be getting from someone selling en masse, trying to sell products. So like, you know, going for the game of numbers instead of the quality end of things. So I would encourage people just to go onto the website, follow us on Instagram as well. We'll be constantly putting stuff up in social media of all the projects that we're doing, and different highlight on the highlight reels every day would be sort of like showing different snippets of how the projects are built and what we're creating. And then so just and then the contact form or the contact numbers on the website.
Fantastic. Well, Cormac Carville from YardBox, thanks very much for taking the time to chat with me today. It sounds like there's exciting things ahead for YardBox, so I wish you every success for the future, and thanks again, Cormac.
Thank you, Peter. It's been a pleasure to be on talking to you as well.